Hi and welcome to another episode of the Monday Night Self-Care Session. My name is Stephanie Burton and this is Project Glow. In tonight's Monday Night Self-Care Session, I wanted to discuss a topic that is really one of my pet favorite topics, which is becoming rejection bulletproof. Because rejection is one of those things that everybody absolutely dreads, and yet it really doesn't have to be as bad as it is in all of our lives. For a lot of people that come to see me, rejection stops them from going out dating. It stops them from trying new business ventures. It stops them from socializing, networking. It stops them left, right, and center in their relationships, in their social lives, in their business lives. It's absolutely everywhere. I started to think differently about rejection when, in my university days, I had a very good friend who began in the acting profession, and she talked a lot about how there was this complete and utter understanding that if you didn't get a part, it was just the way destiny played out, that if it wasn't this part, it was going to be a next part, and basically nobody really took it very badly because it was all part of the industry, it was all part of life basically. And so way back then I started to get interested about, well, what is rejection and why does it hit us so hard, and why does it not seem to affect some people and yet others, especially me at that time, it just went right through me. It paralyzed me on so many different levels. And basically what you get tonight is a snapshot of the last 20 years of me digging up absolutely everything that I could find about rejection, and also the resilience that you need to overcome rejection, and also a little bit about the bigger spiritual purpose of rejection, because like you know, in all of the videos that I do, there's always a bigger picture, there's always a bigger journey, and if you've dabbled and read in awareness and consciousness and awakening, then you know that there is more to just existing and surviving in flesh and blood and all of that. So the three different categories I'm going to divide tonight's little talk into is the pain of rejection, the purpose of rejection, and the power in rejection. And they kind of come in a sequence because you need to know the one before you can understand the other one. So let's begin with the pain of rejection. As with so many things in personal development, when you first start diving into becoming aware and awakened and becoming more conscious, you start to realize that actually there is no human being out there, or no situation, no human situation, that can really ever do anything to you. So the idea that you made me feel bad, or you rejected me and as a result I feel awful, you really start to question that, because there's the most fundamental thing about awareness and consciousness is that there's an outside trigger and then there's an inside reaction, an inside consciousness. And although you cannot control what happens on the outside, you have absolute and supreme power over what happens to you on the inside. So although somebody can reject you on the outside, or not choose you, or walk away from you, or break up with you, the stuff that happens on the inside, well, they didn't do that. They might have given you the trigger, but what happens to you on the inside is as a result of what happened to you in your childhood, how you grew up, how you were conditioned, the things that you saw, and basically the lump sum of your life experiences. So I think the first distinction that we need to make is that absolutely nobody on this planet can make you feel anything. They can be the trigger and they can do what they do, and of course what they do is also a reflection of their past, their lifetime, their programming, their trauma, and you know, the demons that they carry with them. But even if they reject you, even if they leave you, they cannot make you feel anything. You feel within yourself, and although that situation may have triggered something in you, you have the ultimate power and control about how that plays out in your life. And although that person might have rejected you in a minute, in a moment, are you the person who's carrying around that pain, if you like, and kind of like keeping it fresh for yourself for days, for months, for years? It is your choice. It is your choice. Now, a lot of people turn around to me and go, there is no choice, I just feel awful. Well, that's the spiritual journey. That is the process of becoming awakened and aware and actually taking control and ownership of your life is that process of realizing that a whole lot of stuff happens on the outside, but actually what happens on the inside is something you can control and you must control if you want to actually gain mastery of your life and not just be like in a ping pong game, you know, like endless things that people are constantly doing stuff on the outside and you're just up and down and left and right because you're going to be in a place of victim your entire life. And of course, one of the main things about, you know, one of the main drivers that people do personal development is actually to gain control and become empowered in managing their emotions. So that's the first distinction. Things happen on the outside, but what happens on the inside, it may not primarily be a choice because you haven't yet learned how to manage your emotions. But as you start to learn how to, it really is your job and your business and in your control. And that's the good news. It is in your control on how you feel on the inside. So one of the things I talk a lot about in rejection is the pain of rejection is because you have rejected yourself first. Most people go, no, that's not true. That's absolute rubbish. That person came out of nowhere and just disappeared. Well, let me give you this. Think of something that you feel very, very confident about. Maybe you're a great public speaker or you bake a mean chocolate cake. If I came up to you and I said, this chocolate cake is awful, it's absolutely awful, you'd look at me and you go, whatever. You might have some choice words for me as well. But something that you are confident of, when somebody comes and questions you on something that you're confident in, it's just going to bounce off you. Now, if you do the same scenario and you flip it upside down, and let's take something you're not confident about, let's say a part of your appearance or something that you did. Let's take the example of the public speaking. You do a speech and I come up to you and I say, oh gosh, that was really awful. Of course, the pain would go right through you. But the difference is that in the second position, you have rejected yourself first. So the pain of rejection only really comes when your self-love shield is down. And the process of becoming empowered through rejection and actually getting to a place where you can almost see that rejection is one of the most divine things that can ever happen to you has a two-part process. And the first part of that process is to be able to really understand that when rejection comes and it does hurt, it is always, always a great big neon sign pointing back at you going, you have some internal work to do here. Because at the end of the day, when you're truly and utterly and completely in love with yourself, you're solid, you're strong, you're clear, you know who you are and where you're going, whether or not somebody jumps up and down and says, I like you or I don't like you, really doesn't even touch you. It has, the ladies that I've interviewed after I've worked with them, they've all said that out of all the things that we do in the work that we do together, rejection is the one thing, where it absolutely had the potential, and it often did, derail them completely, whether that was on a professional level or a romantic level. They just couldn't believe how afterwards it was just a matter of, yeah, that person feels that way and that's great. And even taking it further and being really okay that that person is honoring their values and their choices and they're doing what's right for them. And the fact that they did not choose you or rejected you is the greatest gift that could possibly ever happen to you. So when we divide the journey of becoming rejection bulletproof into 3 sections, they really rest on 2 columns. So the 3 sections are, you need to understand the pain, you need to understand the purpose, and you need to understand where the power lies. But the kind of structure underneath is that there's 2 elements. You must gain self-love and become strong in your self-love shield, but also you need to understand the mechanics of rejection, because the universe doesn't do anything for shits and giggles. Rejection is a very, very important part in your journey because it radically changes your trajectory towards your destiny. And so I want you to imagine that there's a floor in front of you and there's a little toy steam train, and at one specific spot it hits a sharp right, and that's what rejection is. When somebody leaves your life, or somebody doesn't choose you or rejects you, that's like a sharp left or a sharp right turn in your journey towards your destiny. All right. The 3 reasons why people do leave you are actually because number 1 is you are no longer aligned with them energetically. So you're on a journey going that way, and for some reason this person doesn't energetically match that journey and that destiny anymore. A lot of people talk about that in marriages is we were so alike at the beginning, and then I changed and they didn't, or they changed and I didn't, something like that, and now we're completely different people. Also, the second thing is that a lot of the time somebody leaves you or rejects you is when the learning is done, because relationships, both romantic and business and social and familial ones, come to us for a purpose, because there's learning, there's an exchange of strengths and weaknesses, and when that journey and that learning is done with that person, they have to exit. And so it's not only that you aren't energetically no longer aligned with them, it might also just because it's done. And then the third reason generally why people leave you is because either that person is holding you back energetically from moving forward, or you are holding yourself back by being with that person. And the universe is only really interested in moving you forwards towards your destiny and your greatness. And if you're holding yourself back by being in that situation, or vice versa, then sharp right turn happens. Okay, so let's kind of like recap the pain of rejection. The pain of rejection is not something that the other person can give to you. It's something that happens inside of you, mostly because your self-love shield is down and rejection comes, and when you do feel the pain, it's like a flashing light on your dashboard saying self-love is low. Self-love is low, self-love is low. You need to go do some inner work. So really, already there's a gift in rejection, excuse me, in that rejection, when it does come and it does give you pain, is saying you need to figure out something inwardly, because nothing on the outside can ever complete or fulfill you on the inside. It just doesn't work. Okay. Also, a lot of the pain of rejection is our meaning-making monster mind, if you like that. I can't say it fast. Meaning-making monster mind. Because actually, that person just made a very straight and simple choice. They said in their perception, so from their perspective and their perception, it doesn't matter what you did or didn't do, is through their perception. I want you to imagine that their perception is like a filter. Through their filter, you don't look like a good deal for whatever reason that is. You are not on the menu, and that has something to do with what happened to them in the past. Has something to do with, the things that they shaped their life. I want you to imagine that they are looking through the world, and you in it, through a million different filters. It's like wearing 50 different goggles, and all of them have different labels on them. This is called when somebody bullied me at school. This is when my mommy didn't say I love you. So actually, rejection is the least personal thing that could possibly ever happen to you, because that person is making that decision to move away from you from the perspective of their choices, their values, and whether or not you're in the picture or not, you just happen to be a prop that gave them the impetus to move in a different direction. Human beings like to, at a very core level, move towards things that they believe are going to give them what they need, and they want to move away from what they believe will give them pain. But the key element here is what they believe in their perspective. So it's incredibly personal to them. You just happen to be a puppet. You just happen to be a prop. But also, if you think back in your life, the idea that you've never rejected anyone is actually really false. You constantly reject everything. If you think about it, at some micro level, every part of your life is a rejection. You get up and you choose this jumper over those pants. You get up and you choose an apple over an orange. You get up and into your day, you decide to take the car rather than public transport. There is no meaning in it. There is just a choice. So the other person made a choice. A lot of the meaning that got attached to it is something that happened in your mind. So again, yes, the pain is something that happens inside of your mind, but also the good news is that you have complete and utter power over that. Of course, in the beginning, because it's going to push your button, that's your pain and perspective and past and programming as well. But as I said before, if rejection comes and it gives you pain, it's a great big neon sign saying, let's do some inner work. But at the same time, have a look about what happened to all the people that you rejected in the past. Now, if you're sitting there and you're going, I have never rejected anybody, well, you've probably never rejected anybody like that in that specific way, you know, singing, dancing over text or something. But actually, there have been very many times in your life where you have rejected other people as well. Might have been in the playground. It might be to your brother or sister. You may have rejected somebody's ideas or somebody's, you know, creative endeavors. You need to really own that actually at the end of the day, we are all swimming in the same soup of life, and we all do the same things constantly over and over and over again. So kind of own that, take that on and go, where have I rejected people? All right. Your mind makes meaning, and so it's really, really important to actually distinguish between what happened, i.e. that person chose somebody else and they ran off into the night, and then the meaning that kind of went, it's because, you know, your mind is saying it's because I was fat, or because I was ugly, because I wasn't good enough. That is actually something in your own mind. And so you really have to take ownership that, you know, was it really the pain, the bulk of the pain? Was it really about what the other person did, or this ginormous story that your brain created? It's all about the ego. The ego gets bruised and battered. But, you know, there's a lot out there about the ego, and I am not one of those ego-bashing people. Your ego is the part of your mind that's concerned with keeping you safe. And as a result, it's developed in a bit of a trigger-happy manner. So I want you to imagine that it's kind of like the guard of your system, and it goes, oh, that looks like something that could hurt. Oh, that looks like something it could hurt. And so it's become a little, trigger happy. And as a result, it comes up with this massive story to make sure that you never ever get hurt again. And so when somebody makes a simple choice based on their values and what they believe through their filter is going to give them the greatest rewards and the least setbacks, your mind then goes, yes, it's because I am fat and I'm ugly and I'm not worth it. So take ownership and kind of really get down into, why did your brain come up with those meanings? Because they didn't actually say that. Okay, so next thing that we have to look at is, and I'm summing up wildly, usually I do this in a 4-week course, is the purpose of rejection. The purpose of rejection is to realign you with the energetic imprint of your destiny. So like I said with the steam train, it's a sharp right turn. It just means that whatever learning has needed to be done is done, that energetically you're not aligned with that person anymore, or by staying with that person, you are either holding yourself back or the other person is holding you back. So whoosh, sharp right turn. But the cool thing is actually something called the second law of thermodynamics, which is a very cool little law in quantum physics that says energy cannot be created or destroyed, it simply changes form. And the way that I explained it the other day to my godson was, we filled a bathtub with water, he sat in it and he pushed apart the water to the side of the bathtub, and the water just came rushing back in. And that's exactly how the universe works. It abhors a vacuum. So the idea that something can leave you and there's just this empty space isn't actually true. Another way that you can explain this is actually, you imagine standing in a beautiful countryside, there's a lake in front of you, imagine the temperature going up by however many degrees, it all evaporates and you're left there standing looking at the lake going, the lake is gone. And you can get completely upset and wrapped up unless you look up and see in the sky there are heavy rain clouds, and that actually the energy has moved from the lake into the cloud. And that's exactly what happens in your life. Ever heard that saying, when one door shuts, another one opens? That's exactly what it is. When energetically something leaves, something else comes back in. But if we're constantly looking for the same thing to come in, to be replaced in exactly the same way, you're going to be standing there a whole long time going, it's left, I can't see it. So I want you to imagine that your life is like a great big game of musical chairs. On every chair, there is a label that says health, wealth, connection, cuddles, communication. I want you to imagine, though, that at every point in your life, every once in a while, those chairs get jumbled up and one person moves to another chair. Sometimes 2 people sit on a chair, sometimes 5 people sit on one chair. Is this because energetically, those chairs of health, wealth, connection, cuddles, whatever energetically is in your life, constantly changes form. So in other words, different people step in and out of that energetic imprint so that you can get the maximum amount of learning to be on your journey towards greatness and your destiny to become the, most fulfilled, inspired person that you are. But again, you've got to remember, if you're standing there expecting it to come back in the same form, you're going to be standing there for quite a long time getting really, really upset. The best way to explain this is you're in a relationship, the other person leaves you and rejects you, and you keep expecting that any minute now another relationship is going to walk in the door straight away. But actually, maybe energetically, for this moment in time, it's right that you get your communication, your companionship, your cuddles, all that from different people. So maybe the cat is in the chair of the cuddles. Maybe your best friends or 10 best friends are in the chairs of connection. But energetically, there will never be a seat that's empty. It will just be filled exactly with the people that you need at that moment to move forward. But here's the really great thing is to really let go of the clutches of being embroiled in the spiral of feeling awful about rejection. Write a list of all the things that you didn't like about the person that left. Now you're probably saying, no, I don't want to do that because energetically I believe in blah, 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 the law of attraction, whatever. This is just a little exercise that we're going to do to take the clutches of your ego away from this situation, making you believe that actually you've lost something and that actually that thing leaving isn't the greatest thing ever. So let's have a look. What are the downsides? What are the downsides of the things that left? What are the things you no longer have to put up with? What are the things that you are giving up in yourself constantly by being with that person? Great big long list. Because actually, the truth, and I always point to, you can see it a little bit if I tilt the camera there, the yin and yang sign that I have stuck over there on my meditation pillow, is every person, every situation, and every experience you'll ever have will have equal benefit and drawback. And actually believing that the person that left, it was only great, it was only amazing, or potentially, because if you didn't know that person, being with that person would have only been great, is not really true, is it? So great big list. What went wrong? What was terrible? How did you give up on yourself? Then have a look who's sitting in the chair now. So who's occupying that space of connection, of cuddles, of companionship, of communication? And why is actually this new form much more beneficial to you for this moment right now? And how is this experience you're having right now actually setting you up for all your goals and for you to express who you truly are at the core of you and who you are destined to be? It's an amazing exercise. Now, the thing is you can't do it in your head because your mind can only think about 2-3 things at the same time. So you need to take out a piece of paper and you need to write it down, and you need to take a while. So a couple of hours, a couple of days. If you have a coach, you can do that straight away because the coach will show you the different parts of your mind that you haven't explored. But do explore it in all sorts of areas. So your mind will generally come up with 2-3 quite easily, but then you really need to dig down deep. And this is why it's such a good idea to work with a coach in these scenarios, because your mind really doesn't like going there, and it's got a lot of blind spots. When I do my personal work, I get a coach as well, because my mind is just limited. Even though I've done this for decades, you still have to get help sometimes, especially when you tackle big things where your ego is kind of clutching it and going, oh no, this is terrible. I can't see the balance. I can't see how new things have come in. I can't see how this is the right thing happening for me. I can't see how actually that thing was holding me back and how actually I was holding myself back in that. It's a great exercise. Do take your time, look at it in different areas. How is this new situation benefiting you financially, in your family, with your friends, for your work, for your spiritual life, for your emotional life? There are a million benefits that I bet you haven't seen. So let's move on to the third element of where does the power of rejection really lie? And as I said in the first section already, is when you understand that the pain of rejection is not something the other person is giving you, because no human being can do anything to you to make you feel something. They can do a whole lot of stuff, but the feeling and the response and the reaction is something that happens inside of you. And once you've learned how to manage those emotions, then actually you can really be in a position of choice. You know, all those social media feeds that constantly talk about choosing love over fear. Well, for most people, that's not really a reality, because most of us only really have reaction. That sort of imprint, primal reaction where you read somebody's text and you just want to go rah and rip their heads off. The ability to respond from a higher level of awareness is something you need to learn and something you need to practice. So when people say, oh, choose love over fear, yeah, that's something you have to learn and something you have to practice. And actually, without sitting down and really understanding the mechanics of especially rejection, and also understanding how you are gaining and perfectly aligned towards your destiny by this thing happening, then most people are probably just faking that whole love over fear thing in any case. Besides the fact that most people completely and utterly misunderstand what love is. And as you know, I love my meditation pillow because it has the yin and yang symbol on it. It's the most profound universal law that controls everything, in that every single person, event, experience, anything you will ever experience will have both light and dark in equal measures, light and dark at the same time. So it's not like karma, you do this now, it happens later. It's at the same time. And also every awful experience will have a benefit and every great experience will have a downside. And that's the case with rejection as well. At any point at which you're rejected, there is an equal amount of people or persons or one person accepting you. Because guess what? You can't have the one without the other. Here's the awesome thing as well. Actually, getting accepted constantly from people is not such a good idea, because then you become complacent. Then you get a great big ego complex. Then you kind of don't keep learning. You start getting really high up on your horse. What are the benefits of being rejected? Well, straightforward is you get to avoid what that person's bringing with them, but also you get to do a whole lot of stuff by yourself. There are a multitude, there are equal benefits and drawbacks to being rejected, and there are equal benefits and drawbacks to being accepted. This is really what your mind needs to get into seeing all the time. This is why a lot of us do this work a lot, is because when you can truly see that any experience has benefit and drawback, and that at any time when a negative is happening to you, such as being rejected, you're always being supported and accepted at the same time. And actually, that person that's rejecting you is on a different energetic journey, and the people that are accepting you are your tribe. You're meant to hang out with them. What is there to run away from? Because only at that point can you really truly make choices not from a place of victim. Because otherwise, if you're constantly trying to escape rejection, and by the way, you have heard this before, whatever you resist persists. So if you're constantly running away from rejection, you're always going to get rejected over and over and over again, until you can see the lesson, the message, the blessing, and the gift that actually is underneath rejection. Are you starting to see it? Are you starting to see that actually universe doesn't do anything for shits and giggles, that this is a very specific experience you're having, and underneath it is an amazing lesson and an amazing blessing, and also the gift that is trying to show you your path back to your personal power. So let's talk about this power. Your power is in your head. Your superpower, but can also be your complete and utter demon, because your superpower is your mind. Because no matter what happens on the outside, you are in charge of the processes that happen here. And the way you perceive things then has a knock-on effect on the choices you make and the actions you take. So ultimately, your mindset controls everything. But your mind is like a crazy pony. Yeah, I want you to imagine that you've walked up to this paddock and there's this wild, wild horse. Most humans have a head, a mind that behaves like a crazy wild horse. Beautiful to watch, but can really cause some havoc and go way off course and way off the rails. Wouldn't it be much better to really slowly move up to the horse, get to know it, get to saddle it, and then you have all of that power of nature underneath you to actually direct your life towards your goal, your vision, and your dreams. So your mind is something that you need to learn to harness. It's not something that any of us pop out of our mother's wombs and know how to really, how to really control and manage and soothe and get the best out of. You need to learn how to manage your head. If you don't, mastering your life is a no-go. Without you having real understanding and real knowledge, so you need to learn how to control it and then get, practicing it in the habit, you're going to have no power. And personal power comes from the power of your perceptions. Okay, so two of the things I really want to highlight that really derail people when it comes to rejection is the what ifs and the if only. So a lot of the people that I coach that come to me with heartbreak and divorce and rejection will tell me that if only they had said something different, if only they had done something different, if only they had dressed differently, eaten their food differently, not drunk so much, drunk more, did smoke, didn't smoke, your mind is going to go absolutely bananas, running you riot, and this is when the pony is out of control, running you riot thinking, if only you'd done this and this and this. Well, guess what? There's another person in the equation. No matter what you would have done or not done, the other person is still walking around with all their filters. They are still going to interpret the situation in their personal value systems and in their personal past and programming and childhood perception. There's nothing you can do that you can honestly and wholeheartedly know is going to guarantee you having changed the trajectory of this outcome. It's just not true. Also, even if that person didn't leave you, there would still have been plenty of downsides, because the idea that at any stage you could have secured a life that was only upsides, you know that that's not true, because any situation brings equal challenge and support. The next aspect that your mind will go down a very slippery sliding slope is the what if. What if now I don't ever meet anyone ever again? What if now I'm going to be, homeless with cats? What if now, because your trigger happy mind has been pushed into a corner through this shock of this rejection, you will find that your brain is going to go crazy pumping out the what if scenarios. And guess what I'm going to say is the same thing again. If you have a fear of something, you need to take out your pieces of paper and draw a line down the middle or a page in your journal and immediately look at how, even if that situation happened, even if you were single forever, what would still be the downsides and who would still be in your life in the relationship chair, even if it wasn't a partner, even if, even if you had cats for companionship, what would be the upside of that? Even if you had, adopted children, what if you had, lived with a family with children? The chair of companionship and connection and communication can never be empty. There might not be the seat of somebody in the form of a partner or a relationship, maybe for a little while or a long while. But if this is your fear, then that's something that's going to control you. And that means when we have a fear, we need to sit down, take out the piece of paper and write down, what are the things we are afraid of and where would the balance be? Because no person, no event, no experience on this planet is ever going to give you just a downside. It is always going to be balanced out at the same time. And whatever happens to you is going to be perfectly placed to push you to grow and guide you towards your greatness. So, we've covered the three things. There is the pain of rejection, happens in your head. Nobody can do that to you. The pain happens in your head. The trigger and the rejection might be on the outside. The same thing, at the same time, where have you rejected people? Where have you rejected things? All day long. Vanilla over chocolate ice cream. We're all rejecting people all day long. And that means there's simple choices where we as individuals believe that moving towards something is going to give us more benefit and moving away from something is going to make us avoid whatever downside we think that'll bring. The meaning of that, whether that person, they left you because you're fat and ugly, and this whole mind malarkey that comes up, that's something that happens in your head. And it's a good move to look at, what are you gaining? What is your mind gaining out of going down the slippery slope and going into this crazy dramatic place? Really, there is really a benefit to you. Whether that means that you get to, have the higher moral ground and everybody feels sorry for you, you really kind of have to look at yourself in the third person position and go, why am I melting down like this? Why does my brain think this is a real good idea? And am I getting some great big benefit here by playing my story out for longer than it really needs to be? Because shock really happens for a short time, but then going on and on and on and on and for years and decades and lifetimes blaming people on the outside, well, that means that your brain really hasn't understood that you need to take ownership of that scenario and really go, okay, that person did that to me, but actually this whole drama and craziness in my head is something I'm doing to myself. Okay, the next thing, the purpose of relationship is to grow and guide you towards your greatness. It's aligning you. It's just saying, yep, for a while you were on a trajectory with that person, energetic shift has happened, you are on this path, they're on that path. But here's the cool thing, you have equal benefit and drawback. You're moving towards your destiny. Their life has equal benefit and drawback. And this whole thing of stalking your ex on Facebook, thinking that their perfectly manicured pictures of their new life or their new partner or their new holiday or their new baby or their new house, they don't get away with a one-sided life. Just because you don't see the downside and, kind of social media is known for that, doesn't mean that their life has benefit and drawback, because that's how we human beings function. That's the purpose of our life, to constantly be supported and challenged so that we're sandwiched in the middle so that we can then grow. Because if you're only ever supported, guess what? You're going to become a koala and do nothing. And if you're only ever challenged, you're just going to shrivel up and die. So the universe, in its infinite wisdom, already knows that you need challenge to keep moving forward and really dig into your resilience and, meet new people, find out new things. That's the great thing. When a great big curveball like that hits you, like a breakup or a rejection or a divorce, your whole world shakes, and all of a sudden you have to really dig down deep into your resilience and really understand, what the heck, who am I and what am I going to do now? And it feels incredibly disorientating. I've been there. But what slowly but surely emerges is a new life. And as soon as that person steps out, other people step in, and you know that those other people who are there, either in the form of one person, so one person replaces one person, or one person is replaced by a couple of people, then whoever is in your life at that moment is exactly the people who are perfectly energetically aligned as a stepping stone for you to move on to the next journey. Right, the power in rejection, where you can really look at some people and they just, it just bounces off them, is because they know how to manage their mind. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know how to really stop your crazy monster making monkey mind from spinning out of control and pulling it back to the balance. So when your brain goes, oh, my ex is just having a perfect life, you go, no, look, this is the benefit and drawback, challenge and support in their life. Look, this is the challenge and support in your life. There is no one-sided anything ever. But when your mind goes into a place of shock, then it is your job to learn how to manage, soothe, calm. Whether you need to actively do that by asking questions, asking balancing questions, or indirectly by having a great big, zone out and going to the movies or not thinking about it, because you can actively manage your brain or indirectly. But what you generally have to do is slowly but surely learn how to manage your mind. Because guess what? Your mind is like a crazy meltdown machine. Until you have taken the time and the energy to learn. This is something you have to learn. Nobody learns this at school. Nobody gets this from their parents. But if you haven't ever learned basically your head doesn't have volume control. It either goes, oh my God, I'm so happy. Oh my God, I'm so, depressed. Oh my God, this is amazing. Oh my God, this is so terrible. What you really need to learn is how to put your finger on there and regulate your volume control in your head so that you can actually self-regulate yourself, so that when you go too high, you bring yourself back to the middle. You know, the middle is over there. When you go too low, you pick yourself back up again, because guess what? Both the high of, oh my God, this is so amazing, and the low of, oh my God, this is so terrible, both cause absolutely havoc with your body. If you're in a place of absolute infatuation when you first meet a new relationship and you only know them for like 5 seconds and your brain has already, taken on their last name and, picked out where you're going to go on honeymoon, you're only putting the person on a pedestal. That is not good for your mind. It causes havoc. You can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't think. If you're then in depression, when that person turns out to be a completely normal human being and has both light and dark, then you go, oh, this is terrible. And guess what? You can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't think. Life, and the life that you're looking for, that place where you have a calm mind and a steady heart, is in the middle, where you can see that nothing on this planet has a one-sided reality. Nothing. Everything that you love, everything that you appreciate comes at a price, and everything that you think is bad and is here to destroy you comes with a blessing and a gift. All right. That is pretty much all I have for you today. As I said, usually I do this in a great big whopping course, because we really have to pick it apart bit by bit, where I show you that no matter who rejects you or leaves you, they're not doing that from a personal perspective, because they are in their own filter making decisions on what they believe is right and wrong. Basically has nothing to do with you. We could just put a puppet of you in there and they would still think the same way. Also, the universe is on track. It has your back. If that person's rejected you and now you are no longer with them, something else is coming in that is way more aligned with where you're going, and that actually your destiny and all the things you want to get in your life and want to be and experience is not possible without that change of that old energy moving out and this new energy joining in. Here's the deal though, the old energy had downsides, the new energy has upsides, and until you write a great big list and get really clear on what that is, you're always going to be stuck thinking the old situation was better, even if, and this is the amazing thing, when I sit down with my clients and we write this down, it's like, no, it wasn't as rosy as your brain has made it out to be. There was always something that you're now in the very privileged position of being able to avoid. And then the power is in your mind. So the two elements that you really need to work on is self-love, because when you're solid in your self-love, nothing can touch you. It's not that, nobody's ever going to reject you ever again, because rejection has to happen. Can you now see? How else were you going to get from here to here and grow into your greatness? People are going to have to reject you because they're not energetically aligned with you anymore. But when somebody does, you just go, yep, they're on their journey. Yep, they're on their trajectory. They're on their destiny. And I wonder who's coming in to actually be in their place. If you have any more questions on rejection for me, please post them in the comments below and let me know what you think about this topic. Let me know how you have dealt with rejection so far, and if anything I've said to you in this session has made you think about it a little bit differently. As I said, it's something that you really need to do in depth, on paper, with a guide or a coach, because your brain is never going to go look in its blind spots, and that's obviously what coaches are there for. If you're interested, get in touch with me. I'm so happy to help you work through this. Until next Monday, thank you so much for spending time with me, and I will see you next Monday at 9 p.m. Take care.